They made me eat leftovers in the basement for 18 years. I didn't say a word. But when I finally got on my feet, the payback for a lifetime of swallowed pain came sweeter than they ever could have imagined. My name's Ryan. I'm 24 now. But back then I was just the foster kid. Not Ryan. Not son. Just the kid they let sleep downstairs because there wasn't room upstairs. Even though Jason, their golden boy, had an entire bedroom suite to himself with LED lights, a gaming chair, and a flat screen he never earned. Me? I had a mattress next to the boiler, a single bulb, and the soundtrack of family dinners echoing through the vents, laughter I was never invited to. They never hit me. No bruises, no scars. Just the kind of cold, deliberate neglect that leaves marks you can't see. Birthdays forgotten. School awards ignored. And every time I asked for something, new shoes, a ride, even a normal plate at dinner, my stepmother had the same reply. You're lucky we took you in. Jason didn't need luck. He had entitlement. Blew through 3 cars before 20. Failed half his classes. Still got treated like he was the future CEO of something. Me? I made honor roll 10 semesters straight. Quiet. Reliable. Wallpaper with a pulse. And I kept it all in. Every slight. Every fake smile. Every time they asked me to take Jason's blame for something, a dent in the car, a broken window, and I just took it. Because I knew something they didn't. I wasn't going to live in that basement forever. I was going to earn my way out, and one day they'd realize the kid they pushed aside had built a life worth envying. What I didn't realize was that the real betrayal wasn't upstairs. She came later. Her name was Amber. And I never saw it coming. I used to think Amber loved me because I had nothing. Now I wonder if that's exactly why she chose me. When you're used to being overlooked, attention feels like love. And Amber? She saw me when no one else did. Or so I thought. We met right after college, me, freshly hired, still eating budget noodles in a half-furnished apartment. Her, all charm and easy confidence, like she'd been built in a lab to make quiet guys talk. She asked questions no one ever asked. Laughed at jokes I didn't even think were funny. Made me feel like maybe, just maybe, I wasn't broken. Just rare. I told her about my job in clean tech. She called it noble. Told her I was raised in a basement. She said, that's not who you were anymore. Looking back, that should have told me everything. She didn't ask what hurt. She asked what I had to offer. Amber moved in fast, not just into my apartment, but into my routines, my finances, my future plans. She'd leave real estate listings open on my laptop, talk about getting out of the city before I ever brought it up. When we got married, it felt fast, but right. Like I was finally building a life with someone who chose me. But there were signs. Like how she always avoided meeting my family, which, granted, I understood. But she insisted. Every time. Or how she'd ask questions about my salary in the form of compliments. You're just so stable, Ryan. I feel safe with you. Funny how safety always involved direct deposit. And every time I tried to open up about the past, the basement, the cold stairs, the years of being not real, she'd steer the conversation back to the future. Our future. Amber didn't want to hear about what I'd survived. She just wanted to know how much it was worth now. Of course, I didn't see that then. I was too busy falling for someone who finally made me feel visible. Even if, deep down, I never stopped asking myself one question. Why me? They say love is built on trust. Amber made sure I trusted her blindly. And when things didn't add up, she had one phrase that shut everything down. You're overthinking it. At first, she said it with a laugh. Later, with a sigh. Eventually, with silence so thick you started apologizing just to make it go away. It started small. Little things. She'd take trips back to her hometown, 2 hours away, to help her mom. Fair enough. I wasn't close with my family, so I respected that bond. But every time she went, her phone seemed to mysteriously die. Spotty service. Lost charger. Long drives with 0 updates. I didn't push. I told myself she deserved space. That relationships only work if you don't chain each other down. She called me mature for that. Said she loved how I wasn't controlling. But let me tell you something. There's a difference between being trusting and being groomed to stay quiet. A few months in, she started making gentle requests. Can you send a little extra to my parents? Their mortgage got tight. It was never a big deal, $300 here, $500 there. And she always said the same thing after. You're such a good man, Ryan. Not like my ex. I didn't know who her ex was. She never really said. But apparently I was everything he wasn't. Helpful. Quiet. Financially useful. I should have started connecting the dots then, but like most people who survive betrayal, I wasn't dumb. Just emotionally trained to doubt my instincts. One weekend I surprised her. She was at her mom's. So I drove the 2 hours. Brought flowers. Figured I'd be the good guy who shows up just to say I love you. She wasn't there. Neither was her mom. Her phone? Still dead. That night, she came home early, said her mom wasn't feeling well, so she left. She acted shocked I hadn't called. I told her I had. More than once. She looked right at me and smiled. Ah, you missed me that much? No explanation. No apology. Just a redirect. And like an idiot who wanted to believe her, I let it go. What I didn't know then was that Amber wasn't just hiding where she was going. She was hiding who she was going back to. And the most twisted part? He already knew who I was. If there's one thing Jason mastered early in life, it was taking. Toys, credit, my spot at the dinner table. If it was mine, he wanted it. And somehow he always got it. I hadn't seen him in years. No calls. No updates. Last I heard, he was working in sales, which is code for unemployed but charming about it. So imagine my surprise when Amber started bringing him up casually. Your brother messaged me, by the way. Jason saw one of your interviews online, said you looked different. Confident. Funny. He never reached out to say it to me. At the time, it didn't seem like anything. Just a weird footnote in passing. Amber liked being polite, and Jason was a good liar. Maybe he sent her a DM out of nostalgia. Maybe she just responded out of decency. That's what I told myself. I even remember laughing about it one night. If Jason ever asks you for money, block him. That's his love language. Amber smiled. Looked me dead in the eye. I know how to handle men like that. That sentence stayed with me. Because now I wonder, did she mean users? Or did she mean me? I didn't suspect anything then. Just kept building. New job title. Better salary. We upgraded apartments. I paid off her car loan. The money I once rationed like oxygen was finally flowing, and every time something cleared, she'd kiss me on the cheek and say, I'm so proud of you. Looking back, I think what she meant was, you're finally useful. And Jason? Well, he wasn't gone. He was circling. Waiting. Like he always did. I used to think being the provider meant security. Turns out it just made me easier to rob. It started with little things, which is how every long con begins. Amber would ask me to cover a few bills for her mom. Just for now, she said, until the house sells. Then came the dental work, the plumbing emergency, the forgotten credit card she'd maxed out when we first met. Somehow every unexpected expense had already been pre-approved by me. But what really got me? The way she made it all sound like us. We're just helping them out, Ryan. We're family now. That line got used so often it started to sound like gospel. And I was too proud, too relieved to finally be doing well, to see how deep the roots were growing or where they were spreading. What I didn't realize was that half the help I thought I was giving to her parents was going to mine. Not mine as in family. Mine as in my past. I saw it once by accident, a single line on a shared bank statement. Transfer, C, Ward residence. Ward. That was my stepmother's name. I stared at that line for a full minute before it clicked. I hadn't spoken to her in almost 4 years. I'd left that house without a backward glance. She didn't even know I was married. So why was money moving from my account to hers? I asked Amber about it. Calmly. Casually. She blinked once. Then smiled like it was no big deal. Oh, I've just been helping out. They reached out to me a while back. They're struggling. I didn't want to burden you with it. Burden me. As if giving my money to my abusers behind my back was an act of compassion. She kissed my cheek and said, it's just a few hundred. You'd have said yes anyway. She wasn't wrong. That was the worst part. I'd been saying yes since I was 5 years old. Yes to silence. Yes to blame. Yes to living underground while Jason lived like royalty. Amber didn't betray me with force. She did it with logic. And she was just getting started. There's a special kind of pain that doesn't shout. It just sits in your gut like a cold stone and refuses to leave. That's what I felt when I saw the photo. Amber had gone home for the weekend. Said her mom had surgery, needed help getting around. I told her to take her time. Packed her a bag. Even transferred her a little extra in case they needed groceries. That's the kind of husband I was. Helpful. Supportive. Blind. Sunday night, I was scrolling through social media, half distracted, waiting for her to text that she was on her way home when I saw it. Wasn't even tagged. Just buried in the background of someone else's life. A group photo. For people smiling. Toasting glasses on a patio I couldn't place. Until I did. The siding. The rusted grill. The dead potted plants. It was that house. My house. The one I'd been locked in, fed scraps in. The one I left at 18 and never looked back. And there, dead center in the shot like a knife in my chest, was Amber. Smiling. In his arms. Jason. Not some distant cousin. Not a family friend. Jason. My stepbrother. The golden child. The guy who'd taken everything from me as a kid and apparently decided to finish the job. His hand was on her hip like it belonged there. And her face, that smile, wasn't accidental. It was familiar. Like they'd done this before. That photo changed everything. I stared at it for maybe 10 minutes. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Just one frozen thought on repeat. How long? I didn't ask her. Not yet. Because in that moment, something in me broke. And something else woke up. And I realized I'd spent my whole life taking hits. Not anymore. They wanted to play games? Fine. But I was done playing fair. A younger version of me would have called her that night. Asked a question I already knew the answer to. Begged for an explanation. Maybe even cried. But that version of me? He stayed in the basement. The man who stared at that photo didn't break down. He opened a notebook. Step 1 was silence. That's how you throw off people who expect you to snap. Amber came home Monday morning, humming like she'd just been at a yoga retreat, not in the arms of my stepbrother. She kissed my cheek, told me her mom was recovering, and asked if I wanted pancakes. I said sure, smiled, sat down, and while she flipped batter, I watched her like a man studying a foreign language. Every movement, every glance. I started noticing things that didn't register before. Her phone never left her side. She charged it overnight in her purse, not on the counter like she used to. She'd switched her passcode, changed her lock screen, and every time it buzzed, her thumb hit it faster than a reflex. That week, I did 2 things she didn't notice. First, I set up monitoring on our joint accounts, every transfer, every login, every change. Not just alerts. I went deeper. Buried scripts. Shadow logs. Amber was tech-savvy when she wanted to be, but she wasn't me. Second, I reached out to a friend. Marcus. He used to work cyber fraud for a bank, now runs digital forensics. I didn't tell him everything. Just said I needed help mapping financial activity. Quietly. Looking for anything in particular, he asked. Yeah, I said. Money that's mine. And conversations that aren't. 2 nights later, he sent me an encrypted folder. The transactions? They went back years. Not months, years. Thousands funneled to a second account in Amber's name. Not our joint one I never even knew existed. And the cherry on top? The withdrawals always spiked after she visited her mom. As for the conversations? Let's just say I now had screenshots. Sweet little exchanges between her and Jason. Nicknames. Inside jokes. Payment requests. Whole plans spelled out like I was a bonus level in a long-running game of manipulation. Jason wrote, "Tell him your mom's power got shut off again. He'll wire it before lunch." Amber replied, "Already did. He's sending $500. He's so easy it's sad." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even shake. I just leaned back in my chair and realized they didn't just steal from me. They bet against me. And now, I was going to collect. Revenge isn't loud. It's not a punch or a plate thrown or a dramatic speech in the rain. Revenge, real revenge, is a line on a title deed. The day I walked back into that house, the same one where I slept next to a boiler while Jason had a memory foam thrown, I wasn't carrying a suitcase this time. I was carrying ownership papers. It started with a hunch. Marcus found records linking Amber's secret transfers not just to her family but to mine. My stepmother's name was on the deposit list. Monthly help. A slow bleed. My own money funding the woman who once told me to be grateful I even had a blanket. So I started watching the house. Not in person, from a distance. Property records, tax filings, liens. Turns out they were in trouble. Jason had taken out a business loan against the house and defaulted. My stepmother refinanced to help her real son. The debt sat quietly for months. Until I bought it. Debt collection agencies are ruthless, but they're even more efficient when the buyer knows exactly who they're collecting from. I didn't announce it. Didn't flaunt it. I waited. The knock came on a Tuesday. "Ma'am, this is formal notice. The property's under new financial control. You'll need to vacate unless repayment is negotiated." My stepmother called Amber an hour later. I watched the call log in real time. Amber came home flustered, acting like her mom had a heart attack. I asked if she was okay. She nodded too fast. Wouldn't meet my eyes. I told her I'd make dinner. While she was in the shower, I read through more of the messages. Jason's tone had changed. He was nervous. He'd figured something out. "He's not reacting. That's not good. We should back off." Too late, because I wasn't just planning to expose them. I was planning a dinner, a reunion, a celebration, if you will. All the players, one room, and a stage to tell the truth. Revenge has a flavor. Mine tasted like medium-rare steak, overpriced wine, and justice served at 7 p.m. sharp. I called it a reconciliation dinner. Amber thought it was her idea. She floated it one night while half-watching TV. Maybe we should invite everyone out. You know, smooth things over. Smooth things over. After siphoning my bank account into her family's open hands and sneaking off to my brother's house for visits. Cute. I said yes immediately. Told her I'd handle the venue. My treat. Booked a sleek little spot downtown. Private room, warm lighting, no escape routes. I even let Amber pick the date. I wanted her feeling like this was her show. Meanwhile, I made a few calls. Jason got a formal letter. Friendly, polite, worded like he was being welcomed back into the fold of success. Same with my stepmother. I even had it embossed. Dinner to celebrate new beginnings. They had no idea I meant theirs were about to end. Marcus helped me compile everything. Transaction histories, messages, falsified signatures, every photo and receipt I'd buried in folders for weeks. I had them printed, bound, and slipped into discreet envelopes. Each guest would get a copy. The plan was simple: one course of smiles, one toast, and then a truth bomb loud enough to shatter every lie they'd ever stacked between them. The morning of, Amber was glowing. Thought I was finally healing. She kissed my cheek, said, "I'm proud of you for moving on." Oh, I was moving on. Just not the way she thought. That night we arrived together. She wore red, her version of subtle. Jason was already at the bar, acting like he belonged there. He hugged her in front of me. Too long. My stepmother sat like she was chairing a board meeting. Didn't look at me. Probably figured this was all Jason's doing. They didn't realize I'd brought the house down on them already. Now all that was left was to hand them the keys to their own destruction. I waited until the main course was cleared. Jason had just finished bragging about some crypto thing he was definitely lying about. My stepmother was on her third glass of wine, pretending not to scowl at the waiter. Amber? She looked relaxed, smiling, at ease in a world built on my patience. That's when I stood up. If I could have everyone's attention for a moment, I said, glass in hand, I'd like to make a toast. They quieted. Amber smiled, wide and fake. Jason leaned back like he was waiting to be congratulated. Cleared my throat. My voice calm, measured, like I was delivering a quarterly report, not a funeral. To family, I began. To loyalty. To all the people in this room who believed in me when I had nothing. I paused. Which, to be clear, is none of you. They laughed nervously. Thought it was a joke. I didn't laugh. To the woman who told me I was lucky to have a mattress in her basement. To the brother who borrowed everything, including my wife. And to the wife who took everything I gave her and gave it to them. Amber's smile cracked. Jason's eyebrows twitched. My stepmother straightened in her chair like she'd heard a courtroom verdict coming. I pulled out the envelopes, laid them one by one in front of each of them. Like party favors, except these came with receipts, wire transfers, screenshots, and enough evidence to make a divorce lawyer salivate. "What is this?" Amber asked, voice brittle. "That," I said, "is your resume as a con artist, complete with references. Enjoy." Jason looked like he wanted to speak, so I spoke first. "The house? It's mine now. The one you kissed her in, the one you laughed in. You'll be receiving notice next week." Then I turned to my stepmother. "And you, the generous matriarch, you'll be receiving a letter too. Not a check. A formal debt collection. I suggest you start packing." It was silent. No one moved. No one blinked. So I raised my glass one last time. To being underestimated. To being used. And to never, ever letting it happen again. And I drank. While they sat there, frozen in the wreckage they built for me, finally realizing it had collapsed on them. They say humiliation is quiet. Not that night. The silence at our table had weight. You could feel it pressing down on their lungs like they forgot how to breathe. Amber looked pale. Jason looked furious. My stepmother? She looked like she wanted to scream but didn't know who to blame first. I didn't yell. I didn't flinch. I just sat back down and cut into my dessert like it was any other night. But the damage was already done, and not just to them. You see, I didn't rent that restaurant's private room by chance. There were people there. Familiar ones. A few old classmates of Jason's. An old neighbor my stepmother once called white trash. A cousin of Amber's who had no idea her loyalty was so two-faced. They'd all seen the envelopes. They'd heard the toast. And they started talking before we even got to the valet line. Jason stood up first, fists clenched, like he thought this was going to turn into a fight. But there's no way to swing at someone who already dismantled you legally. He walked out without a word. Amber followed, fast steps, heels clicking like gunfire. But my stepmother? She lingered. Looked at me with something between hatred and regret. You think you're better than us now? I didn't even look up from my fork. No, I said. I always was. You just finally noticed. That was the last thing I ever said to her. She turned and left, slow and bitter. The waiter came by sheepishly. Would you like us to box this up? No need, I said, standing. They already lost their appetite. I tipped generously. Walked out calmly. Didn't look back. Amber didn't come home that night. Or the next. But it didn't matter. Because everything they took from me, every dollar, every lie, every piece of dignity they thought was disposable, I just bought it back. With interest. Amber showed up 2 days later. No keys. No luggage. Just her standing in the doorway like nothing had happened. Like I was supposed to forget the screenshots, the transfers, the fact that her emergency trips had involved wine, lies, and my stepbrother's arms. She didn't cry. She performed. That same wide-eyed innocence she used when she asked for a little help for her mom. Except this time, the stage was empty and the audience had walked out. Ryan, she started, I know you're upset, but there's a letter on the counter, I cut in. You'll want to read it. She blinked. Looked over. Didn't move. What letter? From my attorney. Addressed to you. Subpoena. Civil fraud. Marital asset misappropriation. A beautiful little packet that said in legal terms you played with the wrong man's life. She finally stepped inside, picked up the envelope. She didn't open it right away, she knew. Her hands shook for the first time. You're really doing this? No, I said. You did this. I'm just finishing what you started. She tried the guilt card. Told me I'd ruin her future. That she made mistakes but didn't mean to hurt me. I let her talk. Let her lay down every card she had, regret, confusion, even a shaky attempt at seduction. And then I handed her a second letter. Eviction notice. Her name was never on the lease. She moved in with me. She would be moving out without me. You have 3 days, I said. And no, I'm not paying for your U-Haul. Amber didn't speak after that. She walked out the way betrayal always does, quiet, slow, and one bag lighter than when it came in. Meanwhile, Jason got his own package. The company he worked for? Now under new ownership. Mine. Marcus helped me buy a controlling interest. Turns out Jason's boss had been looking to unload. That quarter. Worse management. Jason walked into the office Monday morning expecting to dodge work. He walked out unemployed. The look on his face when he read the boardroom memo? Well, I wasn't there to see it. But I did frame it. You know what nobody tells you about revenge? It doesn't end with applause. There's no parade. No slow clap. Just quiet. And honestly, that's the best part. Amber moved out on the 3rd day. No tears. No drama. Just bags packed in silence and a final look that wasn't sad, it was scared. She finally realized I wasn't bluffing. That this wasn't a phase. That I'd meant every word when I said, you don't get to rewrite the story. She left behind a few things, a curling iron, a scarf, a bottle of cheap perfume she thought made her smell expensive. I donated all of it. Cleared the apartment like you scrape rot off something worth saving. Jason tried to reach out. Sent a text I'll never forget. It didn't have to go this far. I didn't respond. Because that's the thing about people like him, they only think something's gone too far when they finally feel what you felt. As for my stepmother, she didn't fight the repossession. Didn't show up to court. Probably thought if she ignored the paperwork long enough, the past would stay buried. But I don't bury the past. I excavate it. I rebuild on top of it. And that's what I did. New apartment. New job title. Same city, but it felt different. Lighter. Like someone had finally opened the windows after years of stale air. I didn't date for a while. Didn't need to. Not out of bitterness, out of peace. For the first time, I wasn't trying to prove I was worth staying for. I knew I was. One night, a mutual friend sent me a photo. It was Amber, alone, sitting at a bar we used to go to. She looked tired. Not older, just worn. That was the last time I saw her. Not in person. Just in pixels. And I didn't feel joy. Or rage. Or sadness. I felt done. Not because I got the last word. But because I never needed one in the first place. You wait for it, you know? The apology. The long text. The late night call. The I messed up that never comes. It's not even about forgiveness, it's about acknowledgement. You want them to say, yeah, I did that. I hurt you. But I never got that. And I'm glad I didn't. Because the truth is, people like Amber, Jason, and my stepmother, they don't apologize. They justify. They rewrite. They act like your pain was a shared misunderstanding instead of a calculated transaction. So I stopped waiting for their words. And I started listening to my own. I realized something no one tells you when you're the one left cleaning up the emotional wreckage. You're not weak for believing them. You're not stupid for staying. You're just human. And the moment you stop blaming yourself for being loyal to the wrong people, that's the moment you win. I started saying yes again. Not to them, to me. Took time off. Traveled. Reconnected with people I'd pushed away trying to keep Amber's version of my life on track. I even reached out to my old mentor, the one who first encouraged me to submit that science project years ago. He asked what I was working on now. I told him, closure. He laughed. Said it was the hardest project in the world, no funding, no recognition, no clear deadline. But I'm getting there. Some days I still hear echoes of the basement. That cold metallic hum. The creak of footsteps above me. The silence I used to mistake for peace. But now I live above ground. Now the silence means something else entirely. It means freedom. It's funny, the things that stick with you. Not the betrayal. Not the money. Not even the lies. What I remember most is how loud they used to laugh. Upstairs. At dinner. Holidays I was never invited to. Birthdays I didn't know were happening until I heard the candles being blown out through the vent in the floor. They laughed like they'd already won. Like I was just a background character in their story. Like I'd never get out. But here's the part they never saw coming. I did get out. And I didn't just walk away, I built something. Something stable. Something honest. Something real. You want to know the real twist? It wasn't the revenge. It wasn't the subpoenas or the speech or even watching Amber pack up the life she stole. The real twist was this. I didn't need any of them to become who I am. They thought they were the architects of my future, the ones who took me in, raised me, supported me. But what they really did, they taught me exactly what I never want to become. And for that, strangely, I'm grateful. Now when I hear laughter, it's not from above. It's mine. The real kind. The kind that comes from peace. From survival. From knowing that no matter how deep they buried me, I was never planted to stay there. I was built to grow past them. And I did.